Jake Paul's ascension to the boxing throne has been fast and non-traditional. Now he wants to box other opponents with a background in mixed martial arts. Paul might fight in the UFC, and here is what pros think could happen to him. Will Paul join the UFC soon? 24-year-old Jake Paul recently clashed with Dana White on social media. Paul tried to engage with him over fighter pay in the UFC and also went on to propose a stipulated bout against Jorge Masvidal in the UFC. But before we talk about that, let's discuss what Bellator chief Scott Coker did during this social media clash. You might not believe this, but Coker jumped into the picture and made Paul an astonishing offer. He said that he was open to doing business with Paul as a fighter in MMA. Coker was impressed with Paul's boxing prowess and called him a real athlete. Coker also praised his recent knockout victory over Tyron Woodley. He even offered Paul a chance to come and join the MMA. Coker later elaborated on his intentions with Paul and said that he would allow him to train in one of the best gyms ever. He's going to come to one of the best gyms in the planet, where Khabib is, where Daniel Cormier is still training, where Cain Velasquez is teaching there now. And he's going to go into an environment that he's going to flourish, and he has a wrestling background already. According to Coker, Paul's an excellent fighter with a great strike, and his days of fighting basketball players are long over. Right now, Paul is 5-0 in boxing and boasts victories over prominent MMA fighters like Ben Askren and Woodley. He's even continued his relentless call-out of UFC superstars, offering Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz a chance to fight him. You might not be surprised, but Paul also teased an MMA fight recently, which probably encouraged Coker to make his statements. But will Paul accept Coker's invitation and fight under Bellator's banner, or will he continue to win more boxing fights? Nobody knows as of yet, but everyone is waiting for the former YouTuber to make his statement and respond to Coker. Paul's offer to Dana White. In his social media clash with White, the 24-year-old laid down a challenge to fight inside the famous octagon. As you might already know, Paul said that he would immediately retire from boxing and fight Jorge Masvidal in the UFC if White agrees to a set of conditions, which includes fighter pay and long-term health care. But the UFC boss played down his proposal, offering his challenge, which consisted of drug testing Paul instead. As you might have expected, Paul took this as an insult to his boxing abilities and immediately hit back with a new and revised offer to White. On Twitter, he altered his original offer and placed a deadline for White. He tweeted, "Dana, last day to accept my offer. You are a good negotiator. To bridge the gap, I'm willing to reduce my ask to $40,000 minimum, 40% rev for the first 5 years, and long-term health care." Things have been looking good for Paul ever since he defeated Woodley in the ring. His victory against the champion shocked many and also established him as one of the most popular young boxers in the industry these days. Paul's also been linked with a boxing bout against former world champion Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., as well as Tommy Fury, who's hoping to get a shot at him following the cancellation of their clash. But it's clear that Dana White is in no mood to engage with our problem child and wishes to stay out of whatever Paul's cooking on social media these days. But who knows? White might change his mind and we might see Paul in an MMA fight soon. What happened in the fight against Tyron Woodley? The hottest UFC news of 2021 is when Jake Paul defeated Tyron Woodley in an intense match. And as soon as the referee signaled that the boxing match was over in round 6, Paul leaped onto the turnbuckles in a corner of the ring at the Amalie Arena in front of screaming fans to celebrate his victory. He had achieved the impossible because his opponent, Tyron Woodley, lay face down near the center of the ring after a powerful right hand from Paul had knocked him clear out of his senses. It was like something right out of a movie, and Paul knew he had won big this time. This is why he went on to proclaim he was one of the most valuable boxers in the sport right after the match had ended. You might not be aware of this, but Woodley is a former UFC welterweight champion who had successfully defended his champion title 4 times, eventually losing it to Usman in 2019. Woodley's final 4 UFC matches ended in defeat, and losing to Jake Paul was perhaps the worst out of the 4. Paul currently has over 22.1 million people following him across social media and a plethora of crazy fans who love him with all their hearts. This is also why his promotional tactics on social media are always a hit with his audience. And after winning 5 controversial boxing matches, Paul's stock has risen tremendously, and his ascension in the game has been non-traditional. This is probably because he started as a funny and problematic YouTuber who wanted to get his hands on all kinds of social media controversy. controversy. He grew out of the YouTube and Vine phase and found his true calling in the world of fighting. But controversy still follows the fighter wherever he goes, and because of his history as a YouTuber, people in the industry tend to make fun of him and his skills. This is also why Paul had hoped to be taken more seriously in boxing, and he decided to Woodley in 2021. How did the second match take place? Even though Woodley had fought only mixed martial arts bouts till then, the pair decided to square off in the large NBA arena in Cleveland. Did you know that Cleveland is also Paul's hometown? That place is of sentimental importance to him, as he wanted this important fight to take place there. During the fight, 2 of the 3 judges scored the close bout in Paul's favor, but skepticism about his legitimacy remained after the fight was over. So Paul decided to schedule another fight with the boxer, and he got an opportunity right after Tommy Fury, an undefeated boxer who is the brother of the heavyweight Tyson Fury, pulled out of his fight with Paul because of a medical issue. After finding some spare time on his schedule, Paul scheduled a rematch with Woodley and also promised his fans that this would be a more exciting match than the first one. But even though Paul knocked him out in an intense fight, Woodley commended him and his skills. At some point, you're gonna have to start putting a little respect on Jake's name, Woodley told reporters after the match had ended. His sportsmanship was well received by Paul's fans that flooded social media with their respect for Woodley. Some fans continued to make fun of Woodley's easy defeat to Paul, but others pointed out how the boxer lost with grace instead of creating a scene. The criticism that Woodley faced. As you might have assumed, Woodley was thrashed, not only by Paul, but also by other pros and boxing fans in the community. People pointed out that he had lost solely because he was passive, and after fielding tons of criticism about how he was too passive in their first fight, Woodley decided to be slightly more aggressive to start their second match. You might not be aware of this, but he threw more than 30 punches in the first round, compared with the 10 he threw in August. And in the third round, he also elbowed Paul in the forehead, creating a deep gash above Paul's right eye that bled for most of the fight. But Paul wasn't one to back down, and with less than a minute left in the 6th round, Woodley mistakenly lowered his left hand, which allowed Paul to nail him on the side of the head. After the match was over, Woodley said he did not know why he dropped his hand. "Sometimes I just felt like I was too tense," he said afterward. "I may have dropped them just to breathe and loosen up." Paul's challenge to Fury. Paul, who hasn't faced a boxer in his short career, tried to call out Fury repeatedly in the time he was fighting with Woodley and said that Fury was lucky he wasn't in there tonight. He even said that he had achieved the unachievable by defeating a player like Woodley, and that no other boxer had managed to achieve what he did at such a young age. But even though Paul seems to love himself, not everyone is convinced of his talents. Masvidal responded to him on social media and said, "I fight for money or to fight the best in the world. You're neither. I'll tell you what, come on over to UFC, sign a 1-fight deal. I'll break your jaw in front of the whole world." So clearly, Paul is up for some more exciting action this year. So what do you think? Will Paul take up that challenge? And will he finally end his winning streak against a better fighter? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe. We'll see you next time.